Check this out. Rainy day. Stupid day. Don't like rainy days at all. What I want to say here is, can you hear the arguings? That's my parents. I didn't plan this. They just happen to argue right now. What I want to say is something that's been on my mind for a while. It's really slightly doesn't make sense to me, but then I understand it really well. How is it that people never get tired of life and people never have any existential dilemmas or years of existential dread and existential problems? Because I have, where I live, I have neighbors, a lot of neighbors, a lot of blocks. I live in a block building. There's neighbors. I have family members as well, relatives, and a lot of them are 60, 70, 80 years old, and none of them. What I want to say is, why do some people never get tired of life and never have any existential problems in life? They can go through 100 years of this earthly existence and they never have any of those types of problems. So why? Why is the question here. Because I know old people who aren't wise. I know old people who are stupid people, who never had any existential problems, never questioning deeper life questions. Why are we here? Who am I? Why does life exist? And or never, experiencing nihilistic experiences of not wanting to live anymore and forcing yourself to live and not seeing any point in anything and so on, or wanting to die and so on. This is not going the best. The answer why people never experience that, some people, I have two answers to that. First one, those people are stupid people. There is no other way. I mean, how on earth can you go through 100 years, 80 years of this life and have no wisdom to give when you're 80 years old? How is that possible, huh? You're old human, and yet you can't produce any wisdom out of yourself. So what the hell have you been doing for 80 years? This You have to be stupid human to not have any wisdom when you're old. There is no other way. And I've met a lot of old people who are stupid. It's so, and I want to say as well that being old does not equal being wise. Not always. There are certain experiences that come with age, sure, but wisdom is not necessarily one of them. Wisdom, it's been my experience. I'm wiser than majority of people I've met, like here in my town. And I'm not saying that I'm something special. No, I don't see that at all. It's not about the length of your life. It's about the depth of your experience that determines if you're wise or not. And I've experienced experiences that gave me wisdom. That's why I have it. That's why I have some wisdom. But people that live here in my town, old people, they never had those experiences that I've had. Therefore, they do not have wisdom. And that's how this is. Being older does not equal wisdom always. So that is that. And that is why you can be 20 years old and know more what life is than people who are 60, 50, 70, 80, and so on. Because I've had countless of arguments with my parents who they think they're so smarter than me because they're older and they know what life is, they've been through it. But no, man, you've never touched present moment. You've never had any experiences. Therefore, you don't have wisdom. And of course, there's no words on earth to say them to. And it's like, these stupid people are designed in that kind of way. They are bulletproof for wisdom. You cannot give them any wisdom. And I've tried millions of times, of course. You can't. They're bulletproof to wisdom. They're close-minded, and wisdom cannot penetrate them. You know, they're doomed to live in illusions for their whole lifetime. And no matter what you do, you will not bring them out of illusions. They live in illusions. They don't care they live in illusions. And most likely they don't even know that they live in illusions. You see, they don't know that they don't know, which is a very high form of ignorance. And that's quite a problem. And some people aren't meant for deep life questionings. And you can be 8 years old and die and never have anything of that. So there's that. You're either a stupid human, or there's that thing with soul progression. Like, it takes you more lifetimes to achieve, to experience enlightenment, and then you have potentially, your last lifetime, and then you are whatever else. So this is then the other answer, and I would say that it's most likely it connects with the first one, that I don't know if always, but it connects. It's that people, who are old and don't have any of these any wisdom, it's because they are, it's how somewhat they decided to have ignorant life, because it takes you lifetimes to get to enlightenment and to be wise. And since I have some wisdom, which can tell you that I'm an old soul. I've been through that. I don't remember it, but I know I've been. That's why you have, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. And that's how this thing works. So yeah, that's the answer that I have. It takes me quite a lot to be around those kind of people who don't have same life experiences as I do, because then they don't understand me, and it's like mismatched signals. I'm tuned in certain signals, and these stupid people that are around me are tuned in different signals, and we never match with signals, with frequency, and it's misinterpretation happening, not understanding me and all that. And that's, if you put if you're surrounded with people who will never understand you, you will not feel good, and you're going to have infinite experiences, as I did, when you would need people to understand you, but they don't, and you'll have something is going to happen. Instead of having the type of help that you would want, you're going to get something half-assed, and it's not going to be what you wanted. To this, I want to add a few more things. There's a question that I have, is how people always know what to do with themselves. Why don't they at some point reach a point where they genuinely don't know what to do with themselves, and they have like maybe years, periods, where they just don't know what to do with themselves, and the answer potentially never comes. Like in heart and intuition, it's what I mean. So yeah, why don't people experience that? And in my thinking, I would say that stupid people, average people, non-wise people, people who just have 9 to 5 and all that, I would say that the majority of them don't know what to do with themselves decent amount of times, because their life is just basically like a clockwork thing. They live for job basically, and then when they get home, they have no clue what to do with themselves. And this feeling stays, I think, with them. It doesn't go away. People who have 9 to 5 mostly are like mechanic, robotic people who are unconscious. And when you're unconscious, you have a lot of those existential things, just the things that haunt you, and you never question them. You never go to the root and remove it. So I would say, a lot of them, they generally don't know what to do with themselves, and they use job as as an excuse that they're either busy, or they use job, or watching TV, or just whatever activities to fill their time, to not feel the boredom, to not go through the boredom. So I would say that's that, and that's not cool. Whatever feelings you have to go through them, because that's the only way out of them. Don't Don't distract yourself, don't suppress them. You have to go through. That's going to help. Another thing is, I would say that there's a lot of people that sooner or later, to question why don't people grow tired of life. There's a lot of people that do grow tired of life at some point. And here where I live, there is, I think, there's a decent amount. For some, I would say that I'm certain that they have grown tired of life. And the thing is, they just don't say it. There's us people, we are somewhat designed that we don't really say everything that tortures us. We suffer in silence, a lot, especially us men. Men suffer in silence a lot, and that's why, if it gets really, really bad up here, you have problems reaching out, and it is a big problem reaching out, because most men don't want to do it, or you just can't get yourself to do it. Or if you're like, a tough guy on the outside reaching out for help, you most likely won't do it even if you will need help. So that's extremely dangerous, all of this here, and it's not cool. So I think, there's people here around me that did grow tired of life years ago. They just don't talk about it. So yeah, there's more to people than what meets the eye. There's always, a different side of the story than what you see from people. And you can also go through life that you think that you know certain people, but you actually don't. There's a story that they share with no one, maybe just with that one special someone. And if you don't know that story, you don't really know them. So it's this 3D place is this place of something seems in a certain way, but it's not that way. It's actually maybe the opposite. So there's mostly, there's more to people than meets the eye, or maybe less. Maybe there's less to them. It's like Newman, from Seinfeld. Newman. So yeah, if you look at like your grandparents when you grow up, I remember the perspective I had. You don't know your grandparents, when you're like 10 years old, and you have a grandpa who's like 70, 60, and you think you know them. You don't know them, man. I thought this, when I was smaller, I thought that I know them, but then eventually when I reached when I matured more, when I grew up, when I was like, I remember 19, 20 or something, it dawned to me that they were small ones as well. They had struggles, just like I did, and still do. They had their own struggles as well when they were younger. So there isn't, any possible way that I can know them 100% how they were 50 years ago when they were 10, when they were 20. There's no way for me to know them how were they when they were young, because that's totally different human. So it's generation wise, you cannot, it's time wise, you can't know your grandparents 100%, or your parents, because of the time difference. If you were born at the same time, you can know them, yes, because you know the whole story. But if you don't, you can't never really fully know your family because of their past. You have to know a lot. You have to be wise. You have to study them as well. You have to understand a lot to really understand, what happened to them, and then how to help them, potentially. So there is also that. So yeah, no, maybe. So maybe, grandparents also grew tired of life at some point. They just, didn't tell, and they don't talk about it anymore because maybe they have surpassed that. But, wisdom is not necessarily one of them. Because I have grandparents who don't have any dash of wisdom within them. I'm much more wiser than them in my 20s, and they're like they're like 70 and 80. So grandparents aren't always wise. They are experienced. They had a lot of experience for sure. A lot of shit, ups and downs happened to them. Of course, they had struggles. They have surpassed and so on. But wisdom is not necessarily one of them. Last thing I want to add to this, why people don't grow tired of life, is that people who are in touch with their purpose, they won't grow tired of life. Most likely. Why? Well, you can ask this the same thing. Why doesn't life grow tired of life? Why doesn't life grow tired of itself. The thing is, you are life experiencing life. You know, you are life experiencing yourself or whatever. You're not, guy in the universe. Your universe experiencing the guy. You just have to come to understand it. So better I could say maybe is why doesn't existence, you know, the planet. I mean, roses, all that that you see around you, the world. Why doesn't that grow tired of itself? Huh? Um, because there is a constant freshness to life. Eternal freshness, never ends. You have, of course, you have rotten things. You know, you have flowers that don't bloom, that stay, but um, they stay booties. Um, you have that. So that's apparently not possible. For existence to grow tired of itself. It's a question, a good one. Um, and to this, I want to add that people who are in touch with their purpose, there's freshness to them as well, because life is, you let go of things, and then new things come. Things die, things get born, rebirth, and all that. It's a cyclical thing. Just like I think Friedrich Nietzsche said, like the eternal, uh, I don't know, just stuff eternally going back to its thing. Just cyclical. Things die and they get born, die and born, die and born. Eternal coming to, I don't know, something. So I think that people who are in touch with their purpose, they're not going to grow tired of life, because there's a certain freshness to them, just like with existence. And that is why they don't grow tired of life, because in order to live your purpose, there's something to you, certain quality, certain way of living, so that you stay in touch with that purpose all the time. And you can see that people with deeper purpose in this life, there's something to them if you watch them. We have people who are constantly happy. So why are they constantly happy? Why do they constantly seem like they love life and all that? Well, it's not always necessary they're smart. You have also stupid people who are also happy. That's a different thing. And the same goes, like, you're never gonna see like important spiritual figures like Eckhart Tolle talk about how he grew tired of life and he wants to kill himself. You're never going to see that. I never heard Eckhart Tolle talk about how he doesn't want to live anymore. Only prior to his enlightenment. But then afterwards, he's constantly the same. Never grows tired of life. He's been doing the same stuff for 30 years or something. So you see, because you're in touch with your purpose, you most likely will never grow tired of life and will never experience some sort of depression or nihilistic experiences. That's why. But I want to say that if you're someone who has a purpose, who at some point felt greater purpose to life, if you are someone who is purpose driven, that kind of individual, and then you end up being an extreme opposite, someone who doesn't feel like has any purpose left in the world anymore, someone who struggles to survive daily just to get through the day, someone who doesn't see any more point anymore, someone who is ready to go away from this planet, doesn't want to live anymore, all these nihilistic depressing experiences. If you go from someone purpose driven to someone who doesn't want to live anymore, and yeah, if you go from one to the other, then there's a high chance you've done something wrong, because in order to get to a purpose driven human, especially if you come from dysfunctional family, it takes struggles. You have to do certain things to be purpose driven, and then in order for you to lose all of that, and then stay like that, never feel like you have any purpose anymore, that's a different story. So either something tragic, something horrible has happened to you, possibly like some sort of family curse, or you've done something wrong, you screwed it up somewhere, or maybe both. And that has been my experience. I've used to be this guy who had purpose, felt like I had purpose. And I've wandered down to the worst of the worst, where I felt that my life has no more purpose. And days were strictly just forcing myself to stay alive when I had nothing to stay alive for anymore. So see, that's horrible. That's what but I've survived it, basically. I still struggle with it, but sort of like I have it, this depression, I listing thing, it's in my pinky. It's not that horrible anymore. It still gets to me frequently, but not that horrible anymore. If you survive something like that, then you're a tough motherfucker, tough cookie. And I'm a tough dude, I know. But I want to mean tough as in a strong, not hard human to be around. I don't I don't really want to be that way because that sucks. So yeah, if you're someone who's intact with his or her purpose, then you most likely won't grow tired of life. And if you're someone who has potentially lost that purpose, or someone who never felt like has any purpose in this life, then you will most likely grow tired of life. And that's how this goes, in my understanding. Um, so yeah, that is it for this video. That's it for this rant. That is what I wanted to add. And thanks for watching. Bye.